Nobody expected the billionaire to say this. The little girl didn't cry. That was the first thing everyone remembered later. Not the screaming. Not the silence afterward. Not even the sound of the coffee cup shattering against the marble floor. They remembered the child. 3 years old. Tiny hands. Big brown eyes. Standing in the middle of a mansion hallway, while a furious woman pointed toward the front door and screamed, "Take your child and get out of my house." And somehow, the little girl stayed completely still. She only tightened her grip around the small stuffed rabbit pressed against her chest and looked up at her mother like she was trying to understand why adults suddenly sounded dangerous. The maid holding her hand looked frozen in terror. Then came the footsteps. Slow, heavy, coming from upstairs. Every employee in that mansion knew that sound immediately. Damien Laurent, the billionaire owner of the estate. And judging by the look on his face as he stepped onto the staircase, he had heard everything. What happened next changed every single life inside that house forever. People think rich homes are peaceful. They're not. Most of them are just beautiful places filled with quiet loneliness. The Laurent estate sat on a hill outside the city, hidden behind iron gates and rows of perfectly shaped trees that looked almost fake under the evening lights. From the outside, the mansion looked flawless. Inside, it felt cold. Not physically, emotionally. Too quiet, too polished, too empty. The only warm place in that entire house was the back kitchen where Sofia spent most of her time working. Sofia Ramirez was 30 years old. She worked harder than anyone in that house and somehow remained invisible while doing it. Every morning she woke before sunrise. Every night she went to sleep exhausted. But she never complained. Not once. Because every exhausting hour had a purpose. Her daughter, Emma, 3 years old. Curly dark hair. Tiny shoes that squeaked against the floor. A laugh so innocent it could soften even the hardest days. Sofia had no family nearby. No babysitter. No one she could trust. So Emma quietly stayed close to her while she worked. Most days the little girl sat in corners colouring on scraps of paper or talking softly to her stuffed rabbit like it was a real person. And surprisingly, Damien Laurent had never objected to it. Sometimes he'd pass through the kitchen late at night, after work, and notice Emma asleep in a chair beside her mother. He never said anything, but Sofia noticed the way his expression softened every time he looked at the child. Like something about her felt strangely familiar. Sofia tried not to think about that too much. Some secrets become dangerous when you think about them for too long. For nearly 4 years, everything stayed stable. Careful, quiet, manageable, until Vanessa arrived. Vanessa Harley entered Damien's life like a storm wrapped in designer clothing. Beautiful, elegant, sharp, the kind of woman who walked into rooms expecting attention and always received it. Within months, she practically controlled the estate. The staff quickly learned her moods changed like weather. One moment charming, the next moment impossible. And from the very beginning, she hated seeing Emma in the house. "A child doesn't belong here," she once said while scrolling through her phone during breakfast. Sofia heard every word. "She's quiet." The house manager replied carefully. "She never causes problems." "That's not the point," Vanessa answered coldly. "This is a luxury home, not a daycare." Sofia lowered her eyes and stayed silent. Because sometimes survival means swallowing humiliation you don't deserve. But silence only works for so long. And on one cold November morning, everything exploded. Emma woke up early that day. The mansion was still, quiet when she wandered into the main hallway wearing little yellow socks covered in cartoon ducks. That hallway looked enormous around her. Tall ceilings, crystal chandeliers, white marble floors shining under the morning light. Near the staircase, she noticed something small on the ground. A gold button. To an adult, it was nothing. To a 3-year-old, it was treasure. Emma picked it up carefully, smiling to herself. Then she heard footsteps. Vanessa was walking downstairs, holding a cup of coffee in one hand and her phone in the other. Emma looked up at her innocently, then smiled. "Pretty," she whispered, holding the gold button toward her with both hands. For one brief second, Vanessa almost smiled back. Almost. Then her expression hardened. "Where is your mother?" she asked sharply. Emma blinked. "Where is she?" Vanessa repeated louder. The little girl's smile disappeared instantly. And right then, Sofia rushed into the hallway. Her face immediately drained of color. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, grabbing Emma gently. "She just wandered out for a second." Vanessa slowly placed her coffee cup on the table beside her. The sound echoed through the hallway. "I'm done with this," she said coldly. Sofia's heart started pounding. "Miss Halle, please." "No," Vanessa snapped. "This child should not be running around my home." My home. Those words hit harder than Sofia expected. She opened her mouth to apologize again, but Vanessa pointed toward the front door and screamed. The entire hallway went silent. Emma flinched so hard she dropped the gold button onto the marble floor. Clink, the sound felt painfully loud. Sofia immediately pulled her daughter into her arms. "Get out of my house." "She's only 3, she whispered shakily. "I don't care," Vanessa replied. "Pack your things. I want both of you gone tonight." Tonight. That single word shattered something inside Sofia. 4 years of work. 4 years of sacrifice. 4 years trying to build safety for her daughter. Gone. Just like that. Emma buried her face into her mother's shoulder and stayed, completely silent. Too silent. Like her tiny body already understood fear. Nobody moved. And then, footsteps. Coming downstairs. Slow, controlled, dangerous. Damien Laurent appeared at the top of the staircase, and the look in his eyes made Vanessa immediately regret everything she had just said. Damien walked downstairs without speaking. The tension in the hallway became suffocating. Vanessa tried to recover first. "Damien, I was just handling." "I heard you." His voice was calm. Too calm. That was what made it terrifying. He stepped past Vanessa completely. Didn't even look at her. Instead, he walked directly towards Sofia and Emma. Then something happened nobody expected. The billionaire crouched down onto the marble floor in front of the little girl. Emma slowly peeked up from her mother's shoulder. Damien picked up the gold button from the floor and held it toward her. "You dropped this," he said gently. Emma stared at him for a long moment before carefully taking it back. "Pretty," she whispered again. A tiny smile appeared on Damien's face. "Yeah," he said softly. "It is." Then he stood up and finally looked at Vanessa. "Sofia and Emma are not leaving." Vanessa stared at him in disbelief. "Excuse me?" "They are staying," he repeated calmly. "Tonight, tomorrow, and every day after that." The hallway became completely silent again. Vanessa's expression darkened. "So you're choosing a maid over me?" Something shifted behind Damien's eyes then. Something emotional. Complicated. Old. He looked towards Sofia, then quietly said words nobody expected to hear. "We need to talk. alone. 10 minutes later, the hallway was empty except for Damien, Sofia, and the sleeping child resting against her mother's shoulder. Damien looked at Emma for a very long time before finally speaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" Sofia stopped breathing. Tears instantly filled her eyes, because she knew exactly what he meant. 4 years earlier, before the billions, before the mansion, before any of this, there had been a different version of Damien Laurent. A lonely man working impossible hours trying to build a company before the world swallowed him whole. And, during that time, he met Sofia, not at a glamorous party, not in some dramatic movie moment. Just two exhausted people talking honestly after a charity event ended. One conversation became another, then another. For a few short months, they mattered to each other. Then life pulled them apart. Damien's company exploded overnight. Meetings, travel, pressure, fame. And during all that chaos, Sofia discovered she was pregnant. She tried calling him, again, and again, and again, but she never reached him. An assistant blocked the messages before Damien ever saw them. By the time Sofia learned the truth, it already felt too late. So she raised Emma alone. And when she accidentally discovered the job posting for the Laurent estate years later, she never planned to tell him. Then she arrived at the mansion on her first day, saw Damien standing there, and panicked. So she stayed quiet. For years. Damien's voice broke slightly as he looked at Emma sleeping peacefully. "She has my mother's eyes." Sofia started crying harder. "I didn't know what to do," she whispered. Damien looked devastated. Not angry. Devastated. Like a man realizing time had stolen years he could never get back. "She's my daughter," he said quietly. Sofia nodded through tears. "Yes." And suddenly, everything changed. Vanessa found out the truth later that afternoon. At first she didn't believe it. Then she looked at Emma closely. Really closely. And the resemblance became impossible to ignore. The same eyes. Same expression. Same quiet stare Damien had when he was thinking too hard. Vanessa felt her entire future collapsing around her. But what nobody understood until that night was that Vanessa herself had been carrying a secret. Months earlier, doctors told her she might never be able to have children. She never told Damien, never told anyone. And every time she saw Emma near him, it hurt in ways she didn't know how to explain. Pain turned into anger. Fear turned into cruelty. Not because she was evil, because she was broken. That realization changed everything, including Sofia, because suddenly, hatred became harder. Over the next few weeks, the mansion changed. Vanessa quietly moved out. No screaming, no dramatic revenge, just sadness. One evening before leaving for the last time, she stopped near the front door where Emma stood holding her stuffed rabbit. Vanessa reached into her pocket and pulled out a small gold button, almost identical to the first one. She handed it to Emma carefully. Emma smiled instantly. "Pretty." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "Yeah," she whispered. "It really is." Then she walked away into the cold November rain. And nobody in that house ever forgot the look on her face. After that, Damien started learning how to become a father. Slowly, carefully, like a man terrified of doing it wrong. He listened to every story Sofia shared. Emma's first word, her first fever, the nights Sofia stayed awake holding her while bills piled up on the kitchen counter. Damien listened to everything like those memories were priceless. Because to him, they were. And then one evening something small happened that meant more than any business deal Damien had ever closed in his life. Emma climbed into his lap during a movie. That was it. No dramatic music. No emotional speech. She simply decided she felt safe there. Damien froze when her tiny head rested against his chest. Emma held up the gold bottom again with sleepy eyes. Pretty. Damien looked down at her. And for the first time in years, the billionaire who built an empire finally looked like a man who had found the one thing money could never buy back: time. He wrapped one arm around her carefully. The prettiest thing I've ever seen, he whispered. Sofia stood in the doorway watching them silently. Tears filled her eyes. Not because life had suddenly become perfect, but because after years of surviving, something beautiful had finally found its way back to her. And sometimes, that's enough. People think life changes in giant dramatic moments. Most of the time, it doesn't. Sometimes everything changes because of one small child, standing in a hallway holding a gold button and asking the world a question, without saying a single word. Do you see me? And maybe the saddest thing about life is how many people spend years quietly hoping the answer will finally become yes.